So by the time Sumit starts, Soumya, how did you hear about Testoper?
I was just looking for some option in Meetup and I found this. And I also noticed that today was the last day, but I just wanted to sign up and see what I can learn actually.
Okay, so you can, for other programs, we have a lot of programs going on this year.
Okay.
So you can go into Eventbrite and search up Testoper community. You'll find a lot of programs. We have a meetup coming up next Saturday.
Okay.
On AI and connectivity, so you can look up and join.
Okay, sure. I'll do that. Yeah, thank you.
Nagendra, if you could just post that link for the Eventbrite.
It's already
okay.
posted.
All right, Nagendra. Thank you. Yes, sorry, Sumit, go ahead.
Sure. All right. Good evening, guys. So today we have our last session for karate. The idea is that today we'll have an open session on Q&As, either related to API testing or anything related to karate. Also, I will be discussing about some of the items that we can perform in order to get up and running on most of the things in Karate DSL, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through some of the items that you can work on, create it as a project, or do it individually depending on what your goal is. What your goal is, so you guys can jump start on any of these items, right? So I'm gonna share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
No, Sumit.
Now?
Yeah, now we can see.
All right, let me increase the font size. Okay, so I've listed a couple of items that we can do. Either do these list items independently or make it as a wholesome project, right? This will basically cover most of your karate API testing, and also it will help you. It will allow you to create frameworks, right, based on what you are testing, right? So the first thing that we need to target is data sources, right? So let's assume you have XML and JSON data sources. How do you parse those data sources and how do you read those XML and JSON response, right? So it's both ways. You can either have an XML as an input and XML as a response. So if you work on any of these data sources and integrate and try to integrate it in a project, you will get to know most. So you'll be able to finish most of the things, right? And then once we come back from XML and JSON data sources, we go one level deep into nested data source, right? Where we try to handle complex XMLs and complex JSONs, right? There are multiple values embedded inside a single body. So you need to make sure that the replication of those JSON data sources and anything that is nested, how do you parse those nested data sources, right? The next thing is that what we need to learn is working with the headers. We have different kinds of headers. We saw some of them before as well, but uh, there are types of headers that either it's authentication or any token headers that you need to parse, and also if you need to have headers that are specific to your APIs, right? So you need to be aware of how do you work with different kinds of headers, so that you know exactly if this is uh, one of the property of the headers, how do you handle them, right? And then setting the property values, right? So you have JSON data sources, and let's assume you sent a request and uh, you got a response back with authentication token or any ID. You need to set property again in the next request to use the response that you have received from the previous request to send it to the following request, right? So how do you set those property values, right? The next step on the framework side will be on the how do you rerun failed test steps. So let's assume you have failed couple of steps, but then it might be because of some temporary blocker on the server or either queuing on the server. So if that's the case, do you need to rerun those failed test steps or the whole test, right? So that will also be of value. How do you clear property values, right? So clearing property values means that whatever value that you have set assigned to a body, so you need to clear those property values in order to send to the next request. So you can, it's more so similar as set, but it holds some value because uh, clearing property values will be helpful in the next run, right? And then how do you iterate through results, right? So again, it will be a combination of reading responses, be it JSON or XML, but how do you iterate over your schema, right? And how do you fetch specific values by iterating through results? How do you, the next item will be report scripting, where basically you are defining your own report by either adding tags or adding custom messages. So Karate does give the default report, but then we need it at a more advanced level. How do we script those reports so that we get more meaningful messages and easier to debug, right? From the framework side, again, I would recommend everyone to try one SOAP sample, one REST example, one data-driven sample where you're basically running it over multiple parameterized values. One authentication sample, which is very 99% of the time you will be using this because in all most of the APIs or 99.9% of the APIs come with some kind of authentication, right? If it is not free and open to public, if it is your enterprise API, it will come with some authentication, right? It can be JWT or auth, so you need to practice one authentication sample as well, right? And then you need to create a common baseline load for a certain request uh, where you are adding that load to each and every request, right? And then you have some fixed loads where the values don't change. So any body that you send is going to be common or going to be fixed without changing any of the values, right? Variable load, what you can test is that your every time you send a request, the load changes, right? So let's assume you're sending number of so you're posting a request where you are adding a counter to, let's say, how many clicks or how many number of items a person is purchasing, right? Or how many times that item is being purchased. So that counter API, it will fall under variable load. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it can keep changing, right? And then I would recommend you to go to some public websites and try their samples. Some of the websites that you can try is Facebook. Facebook is a uh, very robust API model so that you can use, and then you have you can select anything, right? So these are some of the 3 websites where I see that it has good API implementation, right? So that's from the project side and your practice side. I will upload this on the GitHub repo, and you guys already have the link, so you can download it from there. But this will more so give you 99% confidence in implementing any Karate API project if it comes into your enterprise, right? Talking about some advanced level stuff. Uh, so, mm, so I'll talk about some of the advanced stuff that Karate provides. One thing is you might face a scenario or a use case where you need to implement conditional logic. So if you go here, you can implement it directly within the feature file. You can run those conditions here, but it also gives you native JavaScript condition implementation for you as well. From the function side, you can directly write a function, a JavaScript function within the uh, within the feature file itself. So you don't have to create a separate uh, function file for JavaScript, right? And then you can also use your Java stuff where you can write your common Java functions. There are some of the utilities that are inbuilt, but most of the times you will not be using these and creating your own. So you can directly create a function like this, which will be equal to how you write it in Java, right? So let's assume you want to uh, verify something with the backend, right? So you need those values out, and you can create your Java functions for reading the backend value from the database, right? You can also add multiple functions in one file, which will allow you to create a common file so that all your functions are stored in one file. And then you have the async method. Async method is basically uh, your asynchronous methods where basically it keeps waiting till, so let's assume there is a web page, one element loads in a particular time, the second element loads in a particular time. If you want to put an async, it will wait till that element load is complete, right? And then there is advanced capability on WebSocket, where you have a WebSocket is nothing but a tunnel uh, between two systems or applications with a single handle, right? So basically, only those two systems can talk to each other through that channel, right? So WebSocket basically creates a channel where two can communicate over the WebSocket protocol, right? And then you have hooks that you can implement. Again, hooks is nothing but again, uh, it's basically your Cucumber implementation of hooks, where you can run before every scenario, once or at the start of every feature file or after every feature file. Right? It's basically the same implementation of what we have in JUnit 5. or JUnit in general. And then we have multiple ways on how do you data drive your test, right? You can either do through examples, or you can follow this approach where you again have examples, but it's a common example where you can have multiple implementations of the same thing, right? So you have name and age. So you're providing the name and age here, and it will pick it up from there, right? So you're only providing name and age as a parameter. And that's pretty much it for Karate API. I know it's a lot from the project perspective, but then once you start doing it one by one, you're gonna feel that most of the things are interconnected with each other. And if you try to do one, you will inevitably be doing a lot of things that are mentioned here, and are integrated with each other, right? When I say nested data sorts, you will have to work with headers, right? But why specific working with headers tagline is basically you need to know all kinds of headers and how each header uh, works and what are the values and keys and values that headers can have, right? And how do you make common headers as part of your test? Any questions on this?
Sumit, before you take questions, I have a couple of things to really do. If you allow me to do it, I would appreciate it.
I was thinking let's open the floor for Q&A, and I guess we'll still have a lot of time for you. So I want to give the floor to you at the end.
Okay. Hopefully, all sticks together. Some of the important thing that I wanted to share. I always use in between time.
Right. So if you want to take it. That's okay.
Yeah, just quick ones, right? Not
sure.
Really. Hey, I want to really understand. Is anyone today joined newly, please? I see AR. Joshi, you should already have our Testoper account, right? Because you have attended previous programs as well. Not sure why you are looking as if you're joined from outside. Same thing with Soumya.
I joined just today.
Hey, Soumya. Nice to have you here. Unfortunately, this is the last session of automated API testing with Karate, right?
Yeah.
Soumya, and if you wanted to understand what had happened since last 4-5 sessions, one session we had technical difficulties, so we got to kind of cancel it. But you can always go to the YouTube and you can look it up. And not only that, there are many other sessions that we have done in the past. Everything is there in the YouTube. Soumya, are you a developer, software tester, developer, automation experts? What are you?
Yeah, I am also doing test automation. So I'm currently working with Cucumber and Citrus framework. So I just wanted to understand how Karate works.
Okay. So there are, you can look it up in the YouTube. That's number one. Yeah. Anyone else join newly here today? No, I think, right? Okay. So let me quickly share what I really wanted to say. The first thing comes first. For those who have newly joined Soumya, you can actually see in the chat. Please copy this in your local desktop, right? You can join the closed WhatsApp group and provide your first name and last name. Then we will add you into the Microsoft Teams. So once you are in Teams, you can collaborate and ask questions to the community, before and after the program, right? So what you guys see is the Teams. Now, why did I show here is because if you go to Codeathon and files and certificates, and you will see in next couple of weeks the topic that we have been doing, which is karate. And inside that, you would actually go, whoever is attended our program, 60 equal to 60 or more than 60% of the attendance, you all will get a certificate, which is a certificate of attendance from the Testoper community, right? So if you have attended the 4 or more sessions out of 6 sessions, you will get similar certificate. Normally what happens is we store it inside this Testoper Codeathon files and certificates, and then we put the topic and put the certificate. So you're always, if you know, right, because you have attended 4 or more, if you have attended, you know you are the one who are going to get it. So you can always come back after 2 weeks and you will be able to download your certificate from here. So Soumya, for you, as you can already see, these are all the different codeathons that we have done in the past, right? Okay. Like code framework, Selenium based, Tavan, and so on. So you can look it up in the YouTube for all the sessions replay. Now, having said that, it is also important that I share with you a few things, right? So today we are officially completing our program, which is automated API testing with Karate. And cloud computing and DevOps fundamental last session is going to happen this Saturday. So that completes our 2 first Codeathon programs that we plan to do. And now the next Codeathon program is starting on May. So May, Sumit will be back to help us understand for next 4 to 6 sessions about Playwright, right? How to use the tool Playwright for test automation. And in parallel, we will also have another Codeathon, which is build app with microservice architecture that starts on 8th May. So if you are a Codeathon fan, so these are the next 2 Codeathons that's coming up. You'll have a break now from March, April, and then on May you will be back into a couple of Codeathons that you can join and attend and learn from it. Meanwhile, what we also have is we have in March 2 programs that we are starting. One is one-day program, right? It's a meetup. So here we have speakers from Tech Mahindra, Wave Labs, PwC, and as well as from IBM. They are coming and sharing their experience on AI, right? So it's kind of a general couple of hours session on Saturday, March 20th. If you have not registered, you should register this. It's always good to learn whatever that's available. You never know when it's going to come handy for you guys, right? So that's number one. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is I'm really a fan of this particular session, which is artificial intelligence with TensorFlow. So you are going to learn the basics of artificial intelligence. I really like the trainer. His name is Harsha. And last year he did this training. And he starts from very basics and he teaches you like when we were small kids, how our parents teach, right? They teach like that. He teaches like that, and it's going to be very interesting. So this session will go on for like 6 weeks, and it happens on every Saturday at 10 a.m. Okay, so if you are interested, you should also join these 2 sessions, and definitely the Codeathon session that's starting in May 5th and May 8th. So I covered 3 important topics. First one is those who are not in the our collaboration channel, Microsoft Teams, make sure that you provide the details. We will add you in. Second thing is I showed you where the certificates are going to be available. And then the third thing is look at in the Eventbrite our future programs. And if you're not registered, please register. And as you all know, end of the day, Testoper community, we wanted to give back selflessly. We are all working like you. I work, right? Sumit works. We just come together. We wanted to, train to learn. And also I joined here to learn, right? So this is what we expect you also to do. And I sincerely hope that if you are interested in training other people, this is not an even company, right? This is a community, open community. We all experts come together, non-profit. Someone teaches and others learn, and the same guy comes and teaches again and others learn. This is how we do things. And if you are interested to deliver some of the topics, you can always reach out to us. If you are interested to volunteer, you can reach out to us. There are more than 40 people volunteer to run this show together. If you wanted to be one of them, you can reach out to us. So all those things are possible. It's up to you and your availability and your interest. You can come back to us. The last message I want to give you is this Testoper Projects. So this one is unique in the sense that it happens on every Friday, 6 to 7. Throughout the year, the idea here is to bring people together, help them to learn skills, form the team, come up with an idea and build a product of their own, give back to the society or start their own company. So whatever is required to take a person from A, knowing nothing, to B, where he can become an entrepreneur, is the journey and is the program that helps with that journey. And that program name is Testoper Projects, right? So we have right now approximately 18 to 20 people in this program. We have not done any marketing, and we expect those who already are joining in our other programs, who are passionate about learning new things, see things differently than the day job, and do things that you don't get an opportunity to do it in a day job. So the people have that kind of a quest and learning abilities are the ones who can join this particular program. All right, so these are all some of the messages that I wanted to really give you. And if you are interested in volunteering, you can always reach out to me and Sumit. You know how to reach out in the Microsoft Teams. We'll be happy to talk to you and see how we can get you to help us in the volunteership. With that, Sumit, I will hand over the session to you.
Thank you, Karan.
Perfect.
Thanks, Karan. So, so today's main purpose was to provide something for you to carry forward in order for you to practice karate. And obviously, I will be on the support. So if any of the thing that doesn't work out for you or is a blocker for you on karate, I'm ready to help. So you can just shout on the Microsoft chat, and I'll try to respond as soon as possible. Yeah, other than that, let's open the floor for any Q&A. Again, it's not limited to karate only. You can ask any question that you have in your mind that you need clarification on. So I and Kader will try to answer it as per our understanding of the subject, and then we'll take it from there, right? So guys, any question that you have for me?
Hi, Shamit. I do have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. For karate, do we need to know JavaScript before we can use karate? Because I saw you were talking about async functions and all that. So I just wanted to confirm.
All right. So you don't need to know JavaScript to use karate or to implement karate. JavaScript is mainly used where all other methods fail, right? There is an inbuilt implementation of JavaScript, but then it's mostly geared towards the configuration, right? Where you don't need to know JavaScript. So if I can share my screen one more time to show to. So if you look at this, right, karateconfig.js, this is all you need to know, right? Which is basically very basic idea of JavaScript on how to implement a function on JavaScript, right? So so if I read this, right, line by line, it's a JavaScript function where it says that environment is karate environment, which is basically coming from your system property, right? And then if there is no environment, set the environment to dev, right? And then you have multiple, so this is a common config. And then if environment is dev, then this is your configuration that you are setting up. If not, if your environment is end-to-end, then these are the configuration that you will set up, right? So this is a very basic implementation of JavaScript. You don't need to know JavaScript because it's only mainly geared towards configuration. But then when JavaScript is mostly used in karate when all other methods fail, right? When the things become really complex for karate to handle, you need to implement custom JavaScript function so that you can get into the native body of certain elements and fetch those items for you, right? It's not a necessary requirement, but the only thing is that basic JavaScript will do for just the config. That's the only component that is there in JavaScript, right? And then the functions come into picture in JavaScript when it becomes a little complex, right? You can handle it with Java as well. So JavaScript is not the end all for karate. You can implement the same complex functions in Java to work out those details. So for me, I normally only use JavaScript when all other methods fail for me.
Okay, thank you.
Sumit, so do we have any simulator capabilities that are actually supported by karate?
There is. So you have the mocking capability
Okay.
that is supported by karate. So you can do virtualization through karate to set up your own test environment using mocking engine. Uh, so if I go here, mm, so you can either use mock servlet or test doubles to create those servlets for you. So you can create your own API implementation using the mocking engines and test doubles, and so that you replicate your third-party system and you don't have to rely on the application to be up all the time.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Good questions. If
Hello,
you,
Sumit.
yep, hey Pankaj.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Because you are saying something, that's why.
No, I'm done. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So can you explain how we can test the API with like session ID or something related to cookies?
Mhm.
Because when we send a response, then it comes with some. When we send some request, it comes with the response, right? And it also comes with some session ID, I think.
Yes. So session
So.
ID is basically your authentication, right?
Mhm.
So either it comes in the response or it comes in the header, right? So you capture those session ID and you use that in the next request, either as an authentication bearer header or in the body itself, if that's how your implementation is. On the other part, when we talk about cookies, Karate has the capability to store cookies and use those cookies in any request. So if you look here in the cookie, you can set a cookie and also you can get the cookie out of your response if you have any cookies related to that, and then you can store it and use that in the same. And if you look here, this is how you will save your authentication token or basically your session ID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when it comes with the cookie, either it is in a response or either in header file. So
It should be in the header, yeah.
header. Okay. So does it come with any default time that an expiry time or something?
Yes. So you generally set a global time for your request to be timed out. You can always configure in the Karate on what that time limit is, because let's say the response is really large, right? Let's say you are fetching 100 megabytes of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to fill a table. So what will happen is in that case, the response takes longer, right? But the Karate is configured to be set with a default timeout, or you can set up a timeout only for a particular request as well. So both the options are available. I generally prefer global timeout because that makes my whole system application implementation measurable, right? Otherwise, if I do it for each request, it's gonna cause me a bit of an issue because I have to maintain those many timeouts.
Mm-hmm. And more work as well, right?
Correct. But what I do, all these things I generally put in my config, right, on under this file.
Mm-hmm. So if I let's say for example if I test the any popular or stable API like Facebook or YouTube,
Mhm.
then still I need to do or set the time for that, or it comes with their default time.
So Karate in general comes with a default timeout, right? You don't need to set it, right? But if that timeout is becoming a blocker in your request because it's failing because of the timeout again and again, then you need to change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Uh, I also have one more question.
Sure.
So,
So so this is where you configure the timeout. So as I said, it's in the config file. You just say karate.configure, connect timeout 5000, read timeout 5000, right?
okay, okay.
So I generally set it up in the config file itself on if I want for a particular environment, let's say my prod response time is faster because my infrastructure is at the production level, right? But my staging or dev environment is not at that level, so it takes a little bit longer, right? So I can set it up with different environments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So the another question is, I think karate is a very like powerful framework as you explained, and lots of features, right, compared to other
Yep.
frameworks like REST API or any other Postman or.
Correct.
So, what do you think? What would be the prospect of karate? It will take over the all other frameworks, or how industry will accept it? It is industry accepted right now, but
So this is what I think, right? It basically depends on what ecosystem your dev team is, right? If they are based from the Java background, right, or they're writing in Java and JavaScript, karate makes complete sense. But if they're developing in Python, let's assume Python, right? Python is some nice. In our in last year we discussed a couple of API frameworks from uh,
Tavern.
Python. Yeah, Tavern was one. So it's not as powerful as karate, but it does get the job done, right? And then you have multiple commercial tools which are free now that comes with the API testing, like Test Project, right? Uh, so it all depends on how your ecosystem is. If let's assume I'm already doing testing on Test Project for my UI testing, right? I would prefer Test Project to be my tool of choice, even though Karate is there. But my tool of choice will be Test Project because I already have the knowledge on that tool for the at the implementation level, and everything is already configured, right?
Yeah.
If I'm starting new on Java API testing, if I'm going to start from scratch, I'll choose Karate, right? But if my whole ecosystem is on Python, I will choose something that is in Python because the whole ecosystem is already available for me to utilize, right? I don't have to go to any CI/CD tool and set up different things for Karate, right? For Python, it's already established, right? All I have to do is plug and play my test, including that, right? And now, what is generally happening in the industry is that more developers are picking up these roles, the automation roles, right? So I'll give the example of Gregory. He's in my company and he's a developer and he's working on the automation side, right? So more developers are picking up the automation work, right? So it gives flexibility within the team that not only one automation engineer, even the developers can write tests because they're developing in Python, so Python is preferable for them to write their test.
Yeah, because true. Because karate has like all three major testing, right? UI, API, and performance as well. Maybe in very soon.
Correct, correct. But Karate US is still too mature. It's not at the level where most of the other frameworks are. So I would be very wary of using Karate UI testing at this point. But they're working really hard and they're doing it fast. So probably within this year,
Yeah,
it
very soon. Yeah, we will get it very soon, I think.
right. So the maturity level that needs to come is will in the on the UI side will come soon. It's not there yet.
Yeah.
And plus, what happens is you're not going to start your UI testing from scratch, right? So you already have your implemented, not let's say not at the large level, but at least some level you already have some UI automated tests, right? So
Mhm.
the first thing that you would need to do is to migrate those tests, right? So that becomes a little bit of a pain to migrate and create from scratch all over again, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so the idea is that you keep one framework for UI and one for API. I don't generally integrate my platforms because of the reason if one thing changes, I have to change everything.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Any other question, guys?
Samit, pardon,
Yep.
go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I got some discussions regarding the DSL. They are saying that there are some DSL limitations. What they are meaning with that?
I agree. DSL will always have limitations. Cucumber always will have limitations. Any feature language, right? Any plain English language will have limitations, right? But the implementation. That's why what Karate has done is it has done the implementation of the complex structures in either Java or JavaScript. So it has given you hooks, it has given you power of functions to integrate within those feature file itself, right? But from my experience, any DSL, any abstraction layer will have limitations, right? It's all about how much flexibility you have on at that level to integrate more complex functions, which is at code level, right? So Karate does give that flexibility in order to integrate Java or JavaScript functions within the feature file itself. Right. So what I would say is that abstractions are good, but then if you do too much abstraction, you become very specific to certain actions, right? And you lose the flexibility. So you can't go too deep into at the abstraction level. You need to provide some flexibility to integrate with either either the programming languages or or some way to integrate at the code level, right? So what I would say is yes, the limitations are there. Rest assured doesn't have that limitation. Reason being that it is at code level, right? But the idea is that the time that the boiler code has reduced a lot with this implementation, so you can ramp up your test within a day. With rest assured, you will take a lot of time just to set up the boiler code. Make sense? So I'm giving an example
Yeah.
of rest assured, but it's with any coding programming language, right? The implementation and coding level, you will use a lot of boiler code to ramp up and start with the testing. With this, you get to start with day one. And the whole idea of DSL is basically to involve different groups to interact with each other on testing, right? At coding, only developer or automation tester were able to work on it. Now, with this DSL, the BA, manual QA, automation QA, and developer can sit together and discuss on how the flow should look like, right? Because it's more readable, more presentable, more easy to understand for each flow, right? It doesn't happen that often, but the idea was born out of that, right? But when you actually go to, let's say your developer is working in a different language and you're working on a different language, The feature file will make more common understanding between you two on how the flow should look like. Right? It's more driven from the requirements than from the text. All right. Any other question?
Sumit, this is Soumya again. So I had one more question. So in my organization, we have some legacy applications which take file transfer protocol. I mean, we use that to communicate between systems. So does Karate support by default any of these FTP or MQ based calls, or is it something we have to build on our own?
I'm not sure of FTP because I'm not sure FTP. It's more server to server rather than API, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
So that was it's more Linux based or system based testing rather than the API testing, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
If you want to integrate the FTP transfer on this, you will have to find a plugin either in Java or JavaScript to integrate it within Karate. Karate by default will not have any FTP test protocols, right? It's not a web protocol, right? So it's as simple as that. So if I look from it, from the perspective of web, FTP doesn't count as a web protocol.
Yes,
right?
that is correct. Yes.
So that's why the implementation is not there. The idea is completely different, right?
Yes.
On the MQ side, it will have some implementation of RabbitMQ that I've seen that you can implement, but then the queue system definitely, again, if it is integrated, the queue system, if it is integrated with the protocols that that Karate supports, right? It can either be SOAP or WebSocket. Only web protocols that have the implementation, the MQs and RabbitMQ and Redis, if they have the implementation from the API perspective, it will support. Otherwise, you will have to find different plugins to add on to Karate. I don't think there are plugins available for specific to FTP. You would you would have to write your custom commands on that.
I understand. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so web
Because the
is
login,
what mostly supported.
it's completely different from login itself, right? So you're going to SSH into some server and then fetch it, right? So the idea is different from the API testing, right?
Yep. Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right then. 3, 2, 1, and okay, Nader, back to you.
Wonderful. One more session, Smith. What can I say? Excellent. And I'm pretty confident that every one of you benefited from this session. All we ask you is two things, right? Refer to your friends and colleagues and have them to join us and get benefit out of whatever that we do. And second request that we have is refer to your company for sponsorship, donations, or whatever as applicable to help us to cover the cost of the tools that we use to deliver these sessions. So these are the two asks. Join in all the programs, future programs, and continue, create a continuous learning mindset and continue to learn. That's all. And with that, our first session comes to an end of 2021. Kudos to both the participants as well as the attendees. See you guys then. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.